Alright, so I have those both cut out, but what you can see what's missing is the front. So this is the next big detail. It's a pretty big deal on doing handles, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to assemble one side to the knife. What I'm going to do is mark where I want the front of the scale to be. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to mark that, I'm going to get them put together, and then I'll bring you guys back. Alright, so what I do is I got my mark on where I want the front of the scales to be. And now you see I got them bolted together, and one bolt, one pin to keep them together, because now any surface, any work that I do to the surface of the scales, I'm going to do together, because the reason is if I do one and then the other, and I sand one a little bit more than the other, once you glue them on the knife, you'll see that they'll be uneven. So by doing them together like this, you ensure that both sides are exactly even when they go on the knife. So first thing I'm going to do is there's a lot of extra wood here, so I'm just going to rough it off real quick with the saw. Get it close. And then I'm going to take it to the, really even it off on the 6-inch disc on my sander here. So this is a bit tedious, so I'm not going to film it. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to take them back apart, check the fit, make sure the line's exactly where I want it to fall on the knife. If it's not, I'll come back and sand it again. If it is, what I'm going to do is take this through all the sanding grits and polish it, because this is the last chance I'll get to work on this part of the knife, because once it's glued on, it's very hard to come back and do that without scratching up the metal. So this is the time to finish this part of the scales. Alright, so I've got the front of those all sanded up and ready to go, so I'm done there. One last thing I wanted to comment about. I mentioned in one of the videos when I was drilling out the handles that I'd come back to these holes. And one other step that I do in my handles that I'm not sure how many other people do is I just took these over to the drill press, and what I did is I dimpled the inside of them. And the reason is for that is because epoxy is still going to be one of the major things for this handle, holding it together. Obviously this one's got loveless bolts, but I still want it to be tight and gap free everywhere. And I used to think that drilling holes in the handles was actually weakening the steel, because how is it possible that being hollow could be stronger than a solid piece of steel? Well, the reality is that your knife is not just steel. It ends up being the composition of the steel liner, handle material, and the bolts all together. And if you're to get that thing and pry it and flex it all together, it's only as strong as the makeup is together, and you end up getting a stronger joint by having places in there in both the handle and the tang for the epoxy to create little pockets and get places to hang on to. I know this because I've done a lot of testing with. I just ground out knife shapes and did various ways of gluing it up and basically beat the ends of them until I could get the scales to pop off. And this is by far the toughest method that I've been able to come up with for fastening these on. So one other quick thing about the handles, I rough cut them out on the bandsaw, and I left them like this. I'm going to glue this knife up with them cut out like that. There are lots of different ways, obviously, to do the same thing, and one of my friends actually, he will take them at this point and he will pin the scale to the knife like this, and he will have already, you can see mine's not perfectly finished in here. He will have already finished this by hand, doing all the hand sanding and all that before heat treating, and then he'll put the scale on the knife like this and run it out at a flush cut trim bit on a router. And the secret to that is, you see how close I'm cut there to the wood. The secret is there to have a close cut. I'm scared to do it myself. I've seen him do it many times, but just because that router bit's spinning so fast. But from what he tells me, that as long as you don't have a ton of material and you're close like that, it's not an issue. If you start trying to hog off a lot of material, that's when the router bit grabs the thing and throws it out of your hand, and that's why it scares me a little bit. So he'll do one and then flip it around and do the other. Then he's already got his knife finished and a nice clean fit, and he glues it up and has minimal finishing. I'm gonna finish out mine a different way. So you guys will get to see that. Obviously not till it's after glued up. But my next step is I'm going to finish out the knife now, and first thing I'm going to do is get the heat treat look off it with my belt sander, and then I'm going to have to hand sand it. Just to show you what I'm going to do, is I'm going to end up using the end, and I'm going to try to keep the handle by itself and the blade by itself to make sure that the handle stays nice and square. And the bad thing about doing this is you got to stay off this end wheel so that you stay flat. But this end of the sander is where it's really got all its momentum. This is where it's really got its pull, and it wants to pull it out of your hand. Now, my friend Nick Allen, NWA Knives, he can grab a knife like this, and he puts his finger up on there to hold it like that, so that the belt will push it into his finger. And he's got bigger hands than I do, and he manages to grab it like this, and he can lay this thing down like that all day and sand it like that. And and he can do it on any thickness knife. I don't know how he doesn't catch his fingers, but I tried it a couple times, and I lost skin off 2 fingers and shot the knife across the room both times, so I gave up on it. But that would be ideally the way you could do it is if you could get the whole surface on there, and I can't do it like he does, so this is what I do. As you can see, it doesn't take much. I've already got the heat treat finish off there, but it's not a perfect sanding finish. So next thing I'm going to do after I do the other side is I'm going to vise it up and do the hand sanding. All right, guys, this part and hand sanding the handles is the glorious part of knife making. So I'm not going to show a whole lot. There's not a whole lot of rocket science here. It's just going to take it from more of a machine finish to a hand finish. So I'll come back to you when I have the next interesting part.